major blow today, or is it that's being called at least, to the president's health care overhaul? A federal judge in Virginia declared part of the law unconstitutional, specifically the requirement that all Americans buy health insurance starting in 2014 or face a hefty fine. That's the so-called individual mandate. The judge ruling it's unconstitutional because the feds don't have the power to require all Americans to buy it or anything else. The Virginia challenge is one of, it actually only ruled on that, but the point is made. Virginia challenge of nearly 24 targeting the overhaul, which the president signed into law back in March. Now, the administration has said it will appeal this. And with us now is Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano. He's the host of Freedom Watch on the Fox Business Network, just up the dial. You've always said that it's your belief from your study of the Constitution that this is unconstitutional.
Yes. The clause of the Constitution on which Congress hangs its hat for power here is called the Interstate Commerce Clause. Basically, the Congress has used that clause to regulate things that move in interstate commerce. Not just cars, but corn grown in one state and sold in another. And then it evolved to anything that affects interstate commerce. So even a bunch of farmers growing corn in their states that stays within the state, doesn't leave the state, Congress can still regulate it, because if you add up all the corn together, it's an economic activity. So the argument here is, when you go to your doctor, is that an economic activity or is it a healthcare activity? One argument. Secondly, does this power to regulate interstate commerce include the power to compel you to engage in interstate commerce? That's the argument that this judge took and said it doesn't. It doesn't give the Congress the power to force you to purchase a good, even though everybody should have health coverage. That's an individual decision and not a government decision.
Let's talk about this judge for just a second. Judge Henry Hudson, not to be confused with the Henry Hudson Parkway here in New York City. Judge Henry Hudson, he indicated all along he was going to, this was the way he was leaning on this. As it turns out, he owns a piece, $15,000 to $50,000 according to his filing, of a political consulting firm that worked with a bunch of Republicans, including John Boehner, Michelle Bachmann, John McCain, and others. Is that part of this equation, or is it not?
It's probably not, because federal judges are permitted to own shares of stock in corporations as long as they don't engage in any management of them and as long as they declare what they do on. This is a George W. Bush appointee, a person of a conservative ideological orientation. I don't think he's made any bones about that.
Not at all.
In fact, in the prior oral arguments, the ones that preceded this, where the government made various motions to dismiss it, he indicated that it's likely he was going to rule this way. And even though I applaud this ruling, this is not the final say. This will go to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, which also sits in Richmond where he sits, and then eventually with all the other cases, there are 20 of these before 20 different federal judges, they'll make their way to the U.S. Supreme Court. But this judge made a very interesting argument when he said no statute, no law, no provision of the Constitution, and nothing that the Supreme Court has ever said authorizes Congress to make you purchase something. No matter how laudable Congress's goal may be, it still has to follow the Constitution.
And what's your sense of how this will end up? Will this end up being a hole in this health care? I mean, the experts with whom I've spoken suggest no.
You know, it's 2,300 pages long. This is about 2 pages of it. Politically, it's the heart and soul and the guts of what the president and the Democrats wanted. Legally, there are other aspects of the law that can stand on their own, which the Virginia Attorney General asked the judge to invalidate, but he decided not to invalidate and to let other judges in other courts look at those. For example, there's the regulation that 85% of collected premiums must be spent directly on health care. That's the one that McDonald's and certain labor unions have been asking for exemptions from. There's the regulation that states set up exchanges, healthcare exchanges, and pay for them themselves. He has not affected any of that with his ruling today. Those are before a Florida judge where other states are the plaintiffs and from whom we expect a ruling after Christmas.
And within the next couple of years or so, maybe?
Well, Ken Cuccinelli, who's the Attorney General of Virginia,
he's pushing the heck out of this.
Right. He's trying to get the Supreme Court to take a direct appeal. There is a rule that will allow the Supreme Court to take a case directly from a trial judge when it's going to get there anyway. But the Supreme Court doesn't like to do that because there's 20 of these out there. I think it wants all of them to be resolved and then go to the intermediate appellate courts and then to the Supreme Court. So you're talking a process of 2 or 3 years.
Yoo-hoo!
That's a lot of time for us to talk about this.
Yeah, shoot me in the face.
No.
Judge, it's good to see you.
Likewise, Shep.
The Judge is on every day, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 p.m. in Oxford on the Fox Business Network, giving you the power to prosper, the fastest growing business in television news.